few seconds.
Yeah.
Like this right now. Hello, everyone.
Getting ready to hit record.
Yep. Ready.
Ready as we're going to be.
That's right. Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, girl, hey.
We haven't started an episode like that, so I figured go for it.
I like it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, so this is episode 36, Daring Greatly mini-series. So we're actually in a unique, interesting position because usually we do the book episodes.
Mhm.
So we've just gone through 7 episodes of Walking Through Daring Greatly, and then we usually do 3 episodes at the end of every mini-series.
Interviews. 3 interviews.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I got you.
Did I say episodes?
Whatever you said
Well,
was meant to
technically,
be said.
it's also episodes.
They
Interview
are.
episodes.
They're episodes in which we interview, which is why they're interview episodes.
Where would I be without you? Totally lost. That's the answer.
Lost in the woods.
Yes. Thank you, whoever wrote that. Shout out to all the 80s
Yes.
bands. Now my kids like the 80s more. So, yes. All right, so this is episode 36, and we're actually going to I'm going to interview Faren.
Yeah.
Yes, and we're going to talk about you, and you're going to open up and be vulnerable about some things. So this will be a good way for us to lead from the front. We've been preaching vulnerability, but now we're actually doing it.
Yeah. So
like any episode, hello Faren, introduce yourself.
hi.
What do
my
you
name is
do for a
Faren.
living?
I have an education. I'm a mom to 3 lovely, well-behaved all the time children.
Perfection.
Oh my gosh, my kids are perfect. They can do
They would never do anything wrong. If you're her teacher, don't call her because they're perfect.
If you say my kids are bad, I'll fight you. No. 3 awesome little girls, and then my wonderful husband, Jacob. And so today I'm going to talk about some stuff that I want to preface with. 1, I am not a doctor. It turns out, not a medical doctor. So if you hear anything and you think you could be in a similar situation, I highly recommend that you see your own doctor. I am not liable for any medical advice because I'm just sharing my story.
I would also like to echo that I too am no medical professional in any way.
Yes.
Nor am I a psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor of any means.
Okay.
We have no professional training.
I do think friends are good therapy, though. So there's that.
I agree.
The second thing is I'm going to talk about some stuff today that I have a different perspective on now that time has passed and I'm further out on the other side. So we'll get into that a little bit, but just if you're sitting there thinking like, oh great, how can she have such a good outlook on it? I just want you to know it's taken time, and then also once you get through to the other side, it's much easier to have like faith and hope that everything's gonna be okay.
Right, this is also what we could call a trigger episode. So if this is going to trigger you in any sort of way, maybe pause, skip to the next episode, go back and re-listen to any of our previous mini-series or listener's choice episodes. Or you could listen to Stephanie Frentress's Grief episode 18. So we'll link that one in case you need to hit pause at any moment. You have the power to do that. So there's that information.
I like how you tease that because then I'm like, no, I'm not skipping it. I want to hear this episode. Yes.
Oh, so, okay. Do you want to say the topic you're going to talk about? And then I'm going to ask you the question I mentioned I was going to say before.
Perfect. So the topic today is all about miscarriages and some about infertility. And so that is the story. But before, do you want me to start or do you want to lead with this question?
So I don't know a lot about miscarriages other than what I know from you because it's also, so this is going to help me grow too because help me with addressing or approaching or how to, how to navigate the conversation.
Yes.
Thank you. So 1 in 4 women are affected by this, or families, parents, one in 4 people, humans, are affected by this. And I was going to ask you, you are about to say like really vulnerable, raw things. We are recording the video and gonna put it on YouTube. So if we end up editing stuff out, like that will still be on there. So you might have something what Brené calls, Brené Brown.
Our bestie.
Yes.
We
Be
call her
money,
B.
be
Yeah,
money,
Be
or
money.
whatever we decided. She calls it a vulnerability hangover, which means you open up, you share, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're hungover from your emotions. So that could look a million different ways. It could look like you're going to become a recluse and just kind of close yourself in, or it could look like you were trying to cope in an unhealthy way maybe, or you could just feel gross and need to find a healthy outlet. So my question to you, Faren, is, because I also didn't give you any information beforehand, I'm surprising you with this improv question. What are some things going into tonight? What plans do you have in place in the event you have vulnerability hangover?
Yes. So I think that the hangover is less and less. I've built a tolerance, like a drinking tolerance.
Which we know nothing about.
Nope. What I read in books.
Yes.
So I think
Literature.
the more often you're vulnerable, the less hangover you have. And if you have not read or heard about Daring Greatly, when Brené Brown talks about being vulnerable, there is an appropriate and very much so inappropriate ways and motives for being vulnerable.
Right, like we're not
So-
going to just shout it from the mountaintops.
Yes.
Or inappropriately trying to get information out of someone else.
And
Or,
who you share it with.
right.
So again, now that I'm on the other side of things, I feel like there's definitely a lot of people that could benefit from this message. I can find some positive from the experience is that I went through. So that helps curb the any type of vulnerability hangover or hesitation into sharing the story. But I can come back and revisit that because that looked different through different parts of this journey.
Right. What I also love that you said, how you said the more vulnerable you are about a specific topic, so if we're talking about miscarriage, the more you are opening up and sharing about it, the easier it is. So remember, vulnerability is being courageous, being brave. So with those little acts of bravery or courage, you're actually building up your ability to be braver in different situations. And so now, yay you, tip of the cap, you've been able to work your way up to now where you're actually publicly speaking about it. So that's a big deal. Congrats to you. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thanks.
This is good.
Thanks.
Braver than I
Thanks.
am.
Well, I just show up every day and
Be
pray
obedient
that,
to the call.
Yeah, pray that I can do what I'm supposed to do.
Right. So, well, you want to
It
just...
all started on
I was about to say,
a summer's day.
Why don't you just start from the beginning? Maybe give us
I
a
was
little...
born
in June.
No, I'll fast forward a little bit.
Thank you.
So in kindergarten.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So, contrary to my kids' beliefs, we have wedding pictures in our bedroom, and they like to say, "Where was I at your wedding?" And so
Right.
then I have to explain that no, Mommy and Daddy got married, and there actually was a time that we were together, and y'all didn't exist.
What?
Yes. So Jacob and I had been married for, I don't know, I'm not good with dates or years, so we're gonna say about 3 years, and we decided to have kids. And we had my first daughter, Tori. No issues. Not getting pregnant the first month was shocking because, you grow up and there's all this societal and, religious and all this pressure about, like, by golly, you better not get pregnant before you get married. And so you think that if you look at a guy the wrong way, like, you're just gonna get pregnant. Immaculate conception.
That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
No. And so I was very surprised that after the first month of trying, I wasn't pregnant, but took about 3 months, no big deal. And we were pregnant and everything went absolutely fine. She was born like 9 days early, but I mean, no harm, no foul. So then I'm one of 4 and my husband's one of 4, and we're pretty close in age to our siblings. And it is kind of crazy. Like, obviously, you know, to have a baby takes like 10 months from trying to actually having the baby. And so if you want to have a baby 2 years apart, then like you gotta start trying when you have a 1-year-old, and you're like,
wait a minute,
I just have a kid
again?
Yeah. So anywho, we started trying, and same thing, had no problem. You know, got pregnant a couple months after starting to try.
So this was after, so timeline.
Yeah.
Married for 3 years, started trying to get pregnant, got pregnant, had Tori a year later. Yep. So this is like year 4-ish, 5-ish into your marriage. How long have y'all been married?
Currently?
Yeah, sure.
10 years.
Great, a decade. Okay.
A decade.
So now we're about halfway through your current marriage. Okay, keep going. Well, I mean, not like
current.
I meant like
currently.
Currently, you have 10 years. 5 is halfway. So halfway. Oh my gosh.
I like
Carry on. I'm not here. Just tell your story.
So, we told my family fairly early in the pregnancy. My family enjoys partying and celebrating and going out to dinner, and everyone has drinks. So it's really easy to tell if someone's pregnant because when you don't drink, you're either pregnant or pregnant. So,
no other option.
Yeah,
guys too.
We told them pretty early, and this was in August, and I ended up miscarrying the Sunday night before the first day of school.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
and
so
yeah,
we just need to pause for a second.
Yeah.
Because the first, like, any starting new year, any new school year, any good teacher is gonna get the jitters.
Yeah.
Like, all right, going on the first day, gotta be on my game, gotta have all the vitamins and all the sleep, because I'm not gonna sleep until Christmas, and storing up all that energy, and then this happens.
Yep. And so
the night before, or like
the night before. And so I called like the on-call doctor, and well, I had Jacob because
how far along were you when this happened?
So
like
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So definitely really early, still in the grand scheme of things. So I am gonna write a blog post, so watch for this. But if you've never gotten pregnant before, so you get a positive pregnancy test and you're all excited, and you call your OB, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, we don't see you until your 8-week appointment. And you're like, but I'm pregnant now.
Right, I want to go now. I want to make sure this is working now.
But they don't see you till 8 weeks, and part of it is because it's not uncommon to miscarry between that pregnancy test and 8 weeks. Not that that's comforting in any sort of way, but so yes, anyways, so found out 7 weeks. I called the doctor.
This is still the night before school. You
night
call the
before,
doctor. Okay.
And you call the doctor, and I know they have to ask these certain questions, but they're like, "Why do you think you're miscarrying?" And you're like,
"Well, dummy,
I'm bleeding profusely."
Right.
And so, anyways, it's very upsetting, and they want to talk to you because I'm one of those, like, when I cry, you can't understand what I say. So I'm like,
sloppy.
Jacob, talk to them. And then the doctor's all like, I need to talk to her. And so then you're like, you're living it, and then you're having to already tell
at the same time.
Yes.
That's hard. So what if we can, so maybe I'll just interject as we go.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone right then in that moment?
I wish I knew ahead of time.
What do you mean?
Like, if you have a miscarriage, then
here's steps.
What's going to be said and asked.
So let's hear that.
So, anywho, you call the doctor. I mean, there's honestly nothing that they can do at that point.
Right.
But they are going to ask why you think you're miscarrying, and they're going to ask like how much is happening, and then they'll want to see you in the doctor's office. They might to see if you just happen to have a period but you're still pregnant, or if it was spotting or whatever, or if they have to do, is it a D&C? Which if you're not familiar with, that's where they have to go and get any leftover materials.
Right, so you don't get infections or anything like that.
Kind of, just help the body clean all that out. So I got to have the first day of school, and then the doctor's office called me.
Okay, hold
Yeah.
on. I might be baffled this whole time. So, you know you're miscarrying, and you still go to school the first day.
Yeah. Because
Miscarrying. While you're miscarrying.
Well, if you miss the first day of school, people are gonna want to know, like, you don't just miss the first day of school.
Okay.
So parents, other teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and then unfortunately, when you tell people, it eventually,
Mm-hmm.
and if people are having to think of a big enough reason why for you to miss, anyway, like, were you sick? No. Anyways, people don't mean anything by it, but I figure I show up, then I don't have to say it. Tell as many people.
With any of that.
Yeah, I don't have to deal with any of it.
Okay.
So then,
what was that like for you?
I mean, honestly, it was kind of a welcome distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not that I recommend that it's healthy, but I mean, it helps kind of bury it for a minute.
Right.
And so the doctor wants to see me that day. So now I have to go and tell my boss that I need to leave early on the first day of school, which getting kids home the right way matters every day, but that first day is extra insane, especially at an elementary school. You don't want to be on the news for losing anybody.
Right.
And so I'm back to a scenario where people are gonna notice my absence, and what could be so bad that you're leaving early on the first day of school. So anyways, but I have to go in, and so I have to like tell some people, and that's really hard. And then I went and I did that. I went to the doctor's appointment, and just so you know, if you have a miscarriage and you go in, your doctor's going to say, yep, you did, and chalk it up to it happens, which I don't know about bedside manner with that. I do think statistically and scientifically, I mean, they're right that it happens. But the second that you find out that you're pregnant, you already start having like your hopes and your dreams and picturing the future and what that's going to look like. And if you've never miscarried, you do have some type of fear of like losing a baby. But now it's like solidified, like, oh, I can lose a baby, the pregnancy. So that's always like in your head now, like a reality. And I do remember after having my first kiddo, I was walking with one of my friends, Maggie Rose, in her neighborhood, and we had one of us had a friend that miscarried, and I remember saying, I hope that if that ever happens to me, that I just am able to understand, like, there's a reason or God's timing, or that I could just be at peace with it. But in the moment, it's still really hard. I definitely think that it's probably harder to have, let's say, a stillborn or lose a pregnancy further along.
Well, I'm going to interject also.
Yes.
Your pain is your pain.
Yeah.
Your feelings are your feelings. So on whatever, whether you lost the baby 1 week in or 40 weeks in or 2 years in or 10 years in, like it still stings. So we don't want to take away from what you're feeling either.
I'm just saying, I think I was surprised by how much it did
took a
hurt.
toll on you.
Yeah. And again, I had told my family.
Mm.
So now I had to tell my family that I was no longer pregnant, which I come from a family of fixers and lovers and helpers and doers, and all I really wanted to do was like be left alone. I didn't, that they happen all the time, and so I didn't want to jump the gun and think like, oh, I'm never gonna get pregnant, or what could this mean for me? And so a lot of times when I share different news with my family, again, it comes from a great place, but it's a bombardment of questions and suggestions, and it's like I'm almost not ready to even move on from this, and I don't even want to go down that thought path for whatever reason.
Right now.
There's so many reasons.
So
Yes.
how did you go about telling them?
So sometimes I just tell my dad, and then I let him
Distribute
go tell
the
everybody.
information.
And sometimes I have my husband tell my dad. So that way he can filter through more of the questions. And so I do appreciate that he takes on, to him, he appears to me that it's not a burden, and maybe it is more than he lets on. But I do appreciate that Jacob, my husband, is able to do that because it definitely helps me.
Right. And then also he's feeling something as well.
Yeah.
So to still be able to relay that information.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, husband.
Yes.
Okay.
So the doctor recommends that you at least have a normal period or cycle before you start trying again. And then anyone that maybe has been trying to get pregnant, there's just something extra, like, sucktastic about
Official word.
having your period when you're trying to get pregnant. Periods suck, but then that whole, 5 to 2 weeks, I hope that's not you guys out there, but however long that period is, it's just a constant reminder that you're not pregnant.
Right.
And then when you're not on your period, every day is like maybe a chance.
Lots of pressure there.
Yeah, and so that sucks. And, in your head, we had this timeline goal. We wanted our kids close in age, that kind of thing. So we wait a month, and I get pregnant in October.
So August, September, normal month. October, you got pregnant.
Yes, and so this time they said, well, let us know when you have a positive pregnancy test, and we can put you on progesterone.
Progesterone?
Yes.
Like a trombone?
Yeah, one of those. I have
Official.
Yeah. And it's supposed to do something all medically and sciencey and help your levels and blah, blah, blah.
Above my pay grade and
Yes.
my knowledge, my wealth of knowledge.
Yes. And so I do that, and I'm like, okay, we got a plan. This is great. We tell his family.
So you told both families now?
Nope. So on the
Just
second
his family.
one, we went, his family was going to happen to get together. So
Okay.
my family, we all live pretty close in the same DFW Metroplex, so we
Right.
see each other more regularly. His family does not drink, often at family gatherings. And so it was more that everyone just happened to be in town for a weekend.
Right.
So we decided we were going to tell everybody. And so we did. And the next weekend we were supposed to go see my family and tell them. But in between those 2 weekends, I miscarried again.
Oh, timeout. So, I'm going to need to repeat timelines.
Yes.
Got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
August, the day before school starts, you miscarry. Regular month.
Yep.
October, you get pregnant. Tell his family one weekend. You're going to tell your family the next weekend. And between those 7 days, you have another miscarriage. So was it like the same signs as the first one, or so you already knew?
Well,
Or-
yeah. Yep. So, same thing. You call the doctor. I don't know why. By that point, I should have just said, I'll call the OB in the morning. But I don't know. I guess you're panicking and you're sad.
Still,
And you want to call
trying to
them,
be hopeful.
and you want them to say, no, you're not.
Right.
But you are. Excuse me. So I go to the doctor, and when you have two, they say, this happens. It's not uncommon to have one or two, miscarriages, so on and so
Now that
forth.
technology is getting better,
Yes.
we can find out earlier when we're getting pregnant.
They say, people probably used to think late periods were late periods when they were actually miscarrying. And again, it's real comforting, but I don't know what you
Is that
expect for them to
sarcasm?
say. Yes, that's very sarcastic.
Okay,
So,
just making
yes.
sure.
It's not comforting, but
So
again,
do not say this.
yeah.
Do not
No.
say that it's normal.
No.
That does not help. Please don't ever say
Yes.
that.
And I need to backtrack a little bit. So my team at school with the first one, obviously, I left early the first day. I said, there's some stuff going on. I don't want to talk about it. And they really respected that space. So, I was close in a work relationship. There's one teammate of mine that I was really close with that I let her know because the first day she took my class, and we had a really good bond. But, you know, it's just something I wasn't wanting to share with the team. One, because I didn't want to fall apart, and I'm one of those, once I start crying, I can't stop. And then you have students, and they're like, what's wrong with your face? And you're like, nothing, what's wrong with your face? And so...
A little tired?
Yeah, there just never seems to be, like, a good time. I eventually did tell them, though, because it just was sad and affecting my mood, and I probably was, you know, a little more short, and I would rather address it before they, like, try to come
Make a judgment about your character or personality.
Well, you know, people will do that anyways.
Those rascals.
Yes, but in not wanting to share, I didn't want to hear anyone say it'll be okay, because you don't know that.
Right.
Like, you're trying
and
to
also
be
it's currently
encouraging.
not okay.
It's currently not okay, and you don't know that it'll be okay. And
Right.
so, again, this is just speaking from
On
the
this side of life.
mindset. Yeah.
On this
On
side
that
of life, we don't
side
know
of the curtain, I just didn't want to hear that.
Right.
I do know that lots of people have miscarriages, and I didn't want to hear that happened to me too. I know exactly what you're going through. Again, I'm not trying to, like, have this mental competition with someone about whose situation was worse, but I didn't want to hear that. You know, definitely in a place of hurt and anger, and so I just needed them to know what was going on, but I wasn't ready to hear any type of support or encouragement. So there was that.
From your experience,
Yes.
in your personality,
Yes.
with how you handle things.
Yes.
So with you, what would have been helpful to hear?
Definitely want to hear somebody just in my corner like, this really sucks, and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to hear, well, at least you have one kid. Some people can't have any kids.
Thanks.
Or, you know,
jerk.
maybe you're meant to adopt. And nothing against adoption, but when you're
You didn't want a solution.
No,
a solution
I
right
don't
now.
want anyone.
You wanted to be mad. You wanted to be sad.
Be mad with me.
Yeah.
Be mad with me and tell me, man, that sucks. I can't imagine that's gotta hurt. You know, do you want to go to Chili's and get some chips and queso?
Gotcha.
You know, anything that involves getting out and taking your mind off of it, not sitting and dwelling and, you know, almost false promises and, you know, oh, well, my aunt's cousin's neighbor had a miscarriage. Like, there was no comfort in my mind of hearing about other people going through a similar situation, or hearing that there could be other options, or promises that somehow it's going to be okay.
What did your spouse do to help you with this? In your corner, be mad with you.
Yeah, he just knows, like, when I am upset or mad or whatever, just in general, regardless of the situation, like, he just does things that he knows makes my life easier. So,
Take things off your plate.
Yeah, that's helpful. So if I'm already in a bad mood and the house is a wreck, and I can't even find it in me to get up and, like, do that, like, he just takes care of maintenance things.
Yes. Okay.
So that is
Good information.
Yeah, that is very nice. And just general questions. So, and then randomly when we're watching a TV show, I'll just throw it out there. So he's always got to be ready to, like, have an
Field it.
impromptu. Yeah, impromptu. Well, what do you think about this? So, I think he just reads me well and knows in general what helps calm me down when I'm mad, what cheers me up when I'm sad. So no matter what it is behind that, he can do it without having to say, like, how do I handle each individual sad situation or each individual frustrated situation?
That is a very good tip. So if you know a friend, or if you are the friend, maybe based off of what you know about whoever this happened to, and this could be, I guess, any tragedy or anything like that, what generally makes them more comfortable, feel safer, feel happier, enjoy things more, and do those things. All right.
Yep.
That's good information. Love it. Very practical.
Yep. So I did appreciate my team. They just listened, and it wasn't till, like, a couple months later that I had one teammate come and share that, like, she had gone through something similar, and she didn't know at that time that I had lost the second one. But, you know, I didn't tell her.
Right.
So,
How is she gonna know?
Yeah. but I was able to receive it a lot better. And two teammates came, and they each separately, and they both started with, I know you don't want to hear this.
Preface, please.
But I haven't stopped praying for you or thinking about you, and I just want you to know, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, fine.
Yes. And so
Thank you.
they chose like the end of the day too. So like if I got upset,
You could go home very soon.
I didn't have to threaten a kid for making fun of my face. Yes, I don't want to lose my job. So that was very nicely handled. And they're women that are a bit older in age, and so I'm sure they've just learned how to navigate those waters a little bit better. So if you're not sure how to handle or respond to someone in a similar situation, you could always turn to someone who's older in age, because they've probably been through either the experience themselves or having to be there and show up for people going through that situation.
Right.
Yes.
All right, so August, October. What's happening in October?
So lose the second one, and they say the same thing. Oh, it happens. So wait a month, and then you can try again. And at this point, I'm like, so how many do I have to lose before we do something?
And try a different thing, because this way's clearly not working.
Yeah, I am one of those that I don't really mind change. I like to reinvent the wheel. People are like, why reinvent the wheel? I'm like, because it could be more awesome. If I do something and it works really well, I'm always looking for, well, how can I make it even more awesome?
Yeah.
So after the second one, and they said, oh, two's typical too. And you're like, great. I was like, but what happens if I lose another one?
Yeah, and how often are you going to say this?
Yeah.
Is this every time until forever? Or?
So they said, well, sometimes we have people that lose 5 or 6 before we go any further. And I was like, I'm not doing that.
No.
Yeah, I said, I'm not doing that. What do you do when they lose 5 or 6? And so they talked about, well, then we run all this blood work, and depending on what the blood work says, we send you to different specialists, yada, yada, yada. The one thing that my doctor did say that was encouraging, she's like, you can get pregnant. She said, if you can get pregnant, man, that's like the hardest battle. So some of you guys out there, I know, are struggling with just step 1, getting pregnant. My issue was more so step 2, staying pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I made it pretty clear that if it happened again, because we had the same plan going into try number 3.
Right.
So I already wasn't very optimistic about that. And so I just said, if I lose another one, I want to go ahead and
do whatever we gotta do.
Yeah. I cannot handle 5 or 6.
Infinite amount of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they were leaning towards, but you can get pregnant, hang in there. Ugh.
And you already had Tori.
Yeah. And that was the thing too. They're like, well,
we already
know that you can successfully have a baby, and we didn't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And again, having 1 or 2 or 3, that happens. But that just wasn't okay with me.
Right.
So we wait, and then my next positive pregnancy test was Christmas morning.
Okay, so October, second one.
Yes.
November, regular month.
Mm-hmm.
December, Merry Christmas.
Yes, and we are at my husband's family's house, and he's like, let's tell him. And I said, babe, we can't do that again.
Can't do it again.
Yes. Excuse me. So as far as my family knows, I've had 1 miscarriage, and as far as his family knows, I've only had 1 miscarriage. And so Christmas morning, I'm like, man, this is going to be such a cool story to tell someday. I start taking the progesterone.
Yeah.
1 makes you go into labor, and 1, I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
Again, not medical experts
We don't
here.
know what we're talking about.
Yes. So, the morning of the first day of school that we come back from winter break, I actually miscarry at school in the bathroom. And yes.
Okay.
It's not funny. I'm just nervously laughing.
I understand. So, did you tell people on Christmas?
No. So this time we learned our lesson. We didn't tell his family. We didn't tell my family. Yes.
Okay. Thinking back, did you wish you would have said anything on Christmas?
No.
All right.
Because having to tell
That
both
would've been
sides
worse.
of the family,
Yes, and
both
then no.
times, yeah.
Relive it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Should have
Okay.
learned the lesson the first time. But hey, everyone, it's not
Yeah.
uncommon to have one miscarriage. So we thought we were good the second time. And we
Yeah.
had made it at like 1 week further.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Okay, so then Christmas breaks over, you go back to school, and it's the day you go back to school.
Yeah.
At school.
Yeah.
At your place of work.
Yeah.
While you're teaching tiny humans.
Right.
Oh.
Pretty awesome. But at least that time I did not have to call the on-call doctor. I just called my doctor and went. So there's a positive.
Business hours.
Right.
Way to see the silver
You
lining
know,
there, Faren.
Yes. I didn't have to tell my story 2 different times.
Ugh.
So I go to the doctor and explain that I understand. I cut her off. That these things happen. Great.
Don't
So helpful.
freaking tell me that one more,
Yes.
not one more time.
Yes. And I said, I want to know the options.
Because this is clearly not working.
Yes. And so she explained that we could run like all this blood work.
Do
and
it. Here's my arm.
It always takes a couple of weeks to get like all the really important ones back.
Sure.
And so, anyways, she's like, well, your levels are all whatever because you were just pregnant. Come back in 2 weeks, and then we'll take your blood work. And then it's going to be another.
Good.
So,
Let's delay this process.
gosh, it takes forever. So in the meantime, we are not trying because why? Why? So,
And you could practice.
well, I didn't say we weren't practicing.
Oh, okay.
I just said we weren't trying. So yeah, anywho, blood work comes back and she says that, and again, it's kind of a blur. I'm not really good with medical terms, but the blood work shows ANA, which is anti-nuclear antibodies, which is associated with autoimmune disease. So that's when your white blood cells attack your healthy body because it just assumes you're constantly in a state of infection. I'm paraphrasing here, but
Gotcha.
yes.
Yes.
So,
Okay. I get it.
yes. This autoimmune disease can be things like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and all the fun diseases out there.
Okay.
So she says, so now that we got this blood work, we are going to send you to a hematologist, which is a blood doctor. And they work at, mine is in an oncology clinic, and so it's really scary going into those places
For
because
sure.
there's obviously very sick people there. And so you're instantly like, oh my gosh, I'm a really sick person. And then they also sent me to a rheumatologist who studies a lot about autoimmune diseases. That's why I went. I'm sure they do lots more things, but that's why I went there in particular. So I went to the hematologist because I have a marker or a gene mutation. It's the prothrombin gene mutation, which
You
is...
sound very professional right now.
It took
Way
a
to go.
long time to learn to say that word. Don't ask me to spell it. Ask Siri to spell it for you. But the prothrombin gene mutation has to do with clotting. And so basically the hematologist said that for whatever reason, when I conceive a baby, my body thinks it's bad, and so it throws a clot to terminate the pregnancy as like a defense mechanism as part of the autoimmune disease. And then I went to see even though I've never had a clot, and so that's just all interesting. I've since then learned that if I have lots of special blood work done, it shows a heightened level of like traces in my blood of what your body releases to break clots. So when they do my blood work, they assume I had just had a clot because all of the stuff in my blood shows the things in your body that break clots down. So for example, the cough you hear on today's episode is from pneumonia. And so I had a whole bunch of blood work done in the ER, and they did a CT scan because they saw the traces of what it releases in your body to break clots down, and they thought I might have blood clots in my lungs. And so if I was
that's intense.
Yeah, if I wasn't so sick and dying, I probably could have explained to them, no.
Listen here.
Yes, my medical experience tells me that I do not, in fact, have clots in my lungs, but I would have had them checked just to be safe.
Yeah, there you go.
But I went to the rheumatologist because the doctor was like, you want genetic reasons, and having kids, you want to make, you just want to be informed of all the genes you could be passing down. And so the doctor did all this blood work, and it came back that I have like markers for lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, leukemia, like all these really big scary things. And he's like, but it doesn't make sense because I'm looking at you and your CBC, like total blood count, whatever, all looks good. So he ran even more tests that were going to take a month to get back. So I'm like, okay, so I have markers for all these really big scary things, but I guess I don't have them. But he wants to rerun all these crazy tests. And so here, maybe this is why, I think when you have a loss, you try to find a purpose in it. And so I was like, man, what if like these miscarriages help catch something early, so I don't like die from some big scary disease, or I can change my diet or some preventative thing. So I think that's how some people, me, try to rationalize these like terrible things. And then you start
Which, let's note, you're a 9, you go to a 6 when you're stressed out. So worst case scenario planner.
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
Yes, facts. So I'm just waiting to find out what's going to happen to my life.
Are we to spring break at this time in the timeline?
Yeah.
About to be spring break?
Yeah, it's probably at least March.
Okay.
And so, anywho, the blood work comes back and he goes, well, I don't know what to say. You have these markers, but you don't have any of these things. Could it mean they're coming someday? Maybe, but there's really not any proof of that either.
Right.
And so he's like, I can't tell you why you're not getting pregnant. And so I told him what the hematologist said, and he goes, I mean, that's a theory, but the fact that you've never had a clotting episode, he's like, I don't know.
It's not adding up.
Yeah, he was not saying it wasn't right. He just didn't feel like there was enough evidence to support that theory.
Okay.
So I go back to follow up with my OB, and so she explains that there have been cases where they give women blood thinners to help them maintain a pregnancy. And she said, I don't know why it works, it just does. And so if you're interested, that's something that we can try. And
so you joined a case study.
Yes. So I said, yes, I do.
Sign me up, good doctor.
This is something new,
Mm-hmm.
So my OB worked very closely with the hematologist to determine the amount and type of blood thinners to do. So they are shots.
Yes,
and
they are.
Yes. All the way through high school, I would cry hysterically if I knew I was getting a shot.
All the way through high school.
All the way through
18-year-old Faren.
Mm-hmm.
Crying.
In college, I decided I better start sucking it up, but it's still awful. And so...
You still hate it. Do you get a flu shot?
I now have to be strong for my kids. Because if
Good job
cry
modeling.
when I get a flu shot, they're sure
They
as
will
heck
most
gonna
certainly cry as well.
So I have to fake myself out.
Hey, this is fun. It doesn't even hurt.
It is.
Oh, so now here you are.
Here's the plan. The plan is the day I have a positive pregnancy test, that day I need to go in and start doing the shots.
What if it was a Sunday?
That would be crazy.
Oh,
I'm sure Monday would be okay.
all right.
At least I'm going to tell my past self
Okay.
that. So, anywho. So May, I think, if that works out. In May, we find out that we are pregnant again.
Mhm.
And so I go in.
So timeline again real quick. I'm sorry.
Yes.
August, normal month.
October,
October, normal month.
December, nothing until May because I could be dying.
And all the blood work stuff. Okay.
Yes.
Just year from hell. Sum it up.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So, May pregnancy test, I get the shot, and they freaking burn.
Okay.
It hurts. I cannot give it to myself because, like I said, I hate shots. The last thing I'm going to do is
Give yourself a shot.
Do
That
it to
burns
myself.
and is the worst shot you've ever had of your life.
It's, the flu shot's a different kind of pain. This one is just the burning sensation. It's kind of like when you have a paper cut and then you put sanitizer on it. So, like that.
And do you want to talk about where?
Yes. So you do it in the fat of your stomach. Subcutaneous is what I believe the medical
that
term
sounds
is.
great.
Yes, subcutaneous.
Deep under the skin.
Yes, and that nice pocket of fat. So
Right in your gut.
yeah, so you gotta pinch your skin and do the shot.
And alternate sides.
Alternate sides because it can do bruising and leaves your skin tender. And so Jacob gets to do this, which
It's every day.
yes, every day at the same time. So you're setting an alarm, and you got to do it within a half an hour of the same time every day, ideally the exact same time. But there's a half-hour window because once it wears off, your body could produce a clot,
Right.
and then that would be bad.
Right.
So, anywho, we do the shots, and we make it past 6 weeks, and we make it past 7 weeks, and we make it past 8 weeks. So that's kind of how my miscarriages went. I made it 6 weeks. The next one I made it 7 weeks. The next one I made it, no, I didn't make it that long. 6 weeks again. 6, 7, 6. So when we get to 8 weeks, we're feeling pretty confident, but it's still early.
Because you can actually get to go to the OB now.
Yes.
At 8 weeks.
Yes. So she did, I think, actually saw me at 6 weeks, and we saw, that the baby was there, and then 8, and then we went back to months after that. And so during this time, though, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
As Brené Brown says in her book. Look at you.
Yes. Brené Brown, B Money, and many old wise people before her. Yes, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I actually heard that's when people used to live in an apartment building above, and you could hear everything, and the person above you would get into bed. You'd hear them take one shoe off, and you'd wait for the other one, and then you knew they were in bed, and it'd be quiet. So, little fun fact for y'all today.
Love it.
Don't fact check me. Don't fact check me.
We won't.
Anywho, so yeah, during that time, it's really hard to let your guard down.
Right.
I kept all the same nursery stuff that Tori had. A lot of that was, why do I want to buy new stuff if this isn't gonna happen anyways? Every time you go to the bathroom, you're just kind of wondering, sorry if you're squeamish, but when you're pregnant, sometimes there's extra moisture around there, and your heart sinks, and you wonder if oh well, there it is,
Right.
must have lost it. Every time you get a stomach ache or a weird cramp or whatever, the whole time you're just kind of waiting for it. You're hoping that
Constant state of.
yeah. You're hoping it's not, and you want to have faith, and you want to, you be the good Christian that has faith in God, that He's going to see you through it all. But there were definitely times through that process that I was definitely angry. I've read many a blog post on miscarriages, and one phrase that stuck with me is this infertility timeout is what I read in one, that you might have a miscarriage or not be able to get pregnant for a year, and at some point you feel like you've done your time. I've struggled in all this, I should be pregnant because
Right.
kind of like a kid
I did my time.
timeout. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did my
Let's
5-minute timeout, so I should, come on, get me out of here.
Right.
You start wondering, what did I do wrong? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And, trying to barter with God
Right.
and all these kinds of things. And so, I remember actually saying to God, if this pregnancy works, this was while I was pregnant, I'll have another one, because we had talked about just having 2. But, you know, if there was a way that, you know, God could help me find a way to get pregnant, I would have a third. And even before I got pregnant, Jacob, you know, he can say this to me, but he was like, you know, maybe we are just supposed to have like one kid. And I knew that truly came from a place of trying to comfort me and relieve any pressure if I perceived him trying to put pressure on me. So that's why that was okay. But I told him, I said, we both grew up with all these siblings. You know, I can't imagine.
It's always been the dream.
Yeah, Tori being an only child, like, there's such an experience in having siblings growing up.
Right.
And I never told him this, but in my head, I just always had this vision of, like, us the kids coming down the stairs Christmas morning, like, getting excited, hey, it's Christmas morning, blah, 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 and just running down the stairs. And at the time, our house is just, like, ranch style, one story. And so part of me was like, if I say that, he's going to be like, we don't even have stairs. Because, again...
They can sleep in the attic Christmas Eve, just pull that thing back down.
Yes.
That's a good way to keep them out from the presents.
Yeah. Don't hide the presents, hide the kids.
Trapped in the attic, yes. Well done.
So, you know, he would have given me a hard time. I'm like, but we don't even have stairs. Because, again, that's just how we can roll and joke with each other. So I just, again, had it in my mind and heart that, like, I know I'm supposed to have more kids. I don't feel like it's an adoption thing. Nothing against adoption. It just didn't seem, you know, I didn't feel that calling. And I feel like the people that are called to adoption are very called to that. Yes. So, anywho, so this pregnancy, it was going good, and all the progress, and
all the shots.
And so, side note.
I gave you a shot one time.
Yes. You did.
Just one time? Was it one time or more?
Maybe at least once with each.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
My bad.
No. So, the bad thing about the shots is that you cannot have an epidural if you have a dosage of the shots in your system.
I forgot about this part.
Yes. And so for the last like month or couple weeks, I don't know, it's all blurry, but let's say like the last month leading up to your due date, you go from a 24-hour dosage to a 12-hour dosage. And I went from Lovenox to heparin, and heparin burns a whole lot more than the Lovenox. And now you're not doing it once a day, you're doing it twice a day.
You're running out of spots on your stomach.
Your stomach's getting bigger and thinner, and so
it's harder
trying
to grab.
Trying to pinch the skin. But you know, I just had the mental like conversation that losing the baby would hurt way more than the shots. And I mean, that just, it seems obvious.
Made it easy to take a shot.
Yes. So yeah.
Easy. Air quote.
No, for sure. I mean, it just was having that mindset. I've met other women since then that have done the shots, and I'm like, you can always come to me and always like complain about the shots, because you almost feel guilty complaining, because again, you do know there's women out there that can't even get pregnant, or the ones that struggle to get pregnant and can't keep the baby, and so you feel bad for even complaining about having this solution, but it does. It still burns and it still sucks. But you obviously know that it's worth it. So yes, so luckily, my shot time might have been like 7 in the morning and 7 at night. And so I went into labor one evening with Brianna, and she got the epidural. And
Heck yeah,
so,
thank you, Jesus.
She was born, no issues, no problems. And oh my gosh, once she was here, so I don't feel like people talk about this enough. Like, you have a baby, and it's almost, to me, it's so much more scarier once they're born, because like they could hurt you. I have a really close friend who conceived twins, but only one was born. The other was not alive when she was born, and she had an older daughter, and she just said that second experience with the twins, it was almost hard to bond because she instantly realized, like, this thing can hurt me.
Right.
So, like, you have this baby and, you know, you love this baby. And, man, if anything happened to this baby, like, that's painful. And so that attachment piece. And so I kind of wondered about that with having Brianna, my second baby. But you're just so, my experience was I was just so grateful to have come from the miscarriage struggles to actually holding a healthy baby in my arms that, you know, aside from, I'd say, your typical average, like, watching them breathe in the middle of the night when you should be sleeping.
That's normal. That's the normal psychosis stuff.
Yes. That, you know, I was just so happy to have the baby. So yeah, no one on either side knew that I had had 3 miscarriages till long after I'd had Brianna.
How long after?
Oh, at least a year.
Until you felt comfortable enough to talk about it?
There wasn't really much of a reason in my mind to really bring it up because, again, I kind of had gotten to the other side of things. But there were just different people that I'd come across that would share that they were having trouble getting pregnant, and that they had heard that I had had trouble getting pregnant. And it started with, like, school people, because my school team knew about all 3, for sure 2. But, and again, I don't look at that as, like, people gossiping or anything like that. I think when you see someone hurting, everyone wants to try to solve that.
Yeah, what's the motivation behind that?
Exactly. And so the fact that I had trouble, now I had a kid, I think
what did you do?
Exactly.
How can I do that?
Yes. And so this was the first time that I saw that my vulnerability in sharing that experience could help somebody else. When I did all the blood work testing, you know, part of it was that I needed to let my mom and my sister know, because it was, like, I guess...
hereditary?
Yeah, on, like, the female side, however they determine those things.
So what's the benefit of telling them?
Yes, so just that, you know, my mom, when, you know, you go through menopause and then being on, like, hormone medication that could, you know, increase your chances of clotting depending on the different hormone medications. And then even my sister, you know, she could potentially avoid ever having to go through having a miscarriage by, you know, going this blood thinner shot route.
From the beginning.
Yes. Which update? My sister is pregnant and expecting her first baby.
Congrats, Sid. Big deal.
Yes. And so she had gotten tested way back when and found out she had the same gene mutation. And so even though I had no problems with my first pregnancy, she just went ahead and has done the shots with this pregnancy, because the whole thing is, it's like, do you not do it and then something happens and you wonder the rest of your life, what if? Or do you just do it as a precaution? And so that's the route she went. So I really didn't talk a whole lot about it until, 1, I was on the other side. I had successfully had a baby, which makes it easier to talk about. And 2, I had the mindset of, if I share, it could help others. Whereas if I just keep it to myself, then...
Now you're looking at Sid potentially losing a kid, or your mom potentially getting clots isn't, you know, going through.
I mean, that was a no-brainer that I'd share with them, but as far as, like, sharing with... Again, it just started at work, and I think that's because most people at work knew.
Right.
I didn't really talk about it with, like, anybody else.
That forced vulnerability.
Yeah. Just rip it out of me.
There you go.
So since then, there have been a handful of people that have approached their doctors about, you know, doing the different blood work tests and doing the blood thinner shots, and, you know, they've had very successful pregnancies. So one person had to do the combination of IVF and the shots because they had trouble getting pregnant. But another family, same thing, could get pregnant but couldn't keep it. And, you know, there's been even a friend of ours that has miscarried almost maybe like 10 times.
Yeah.
And now they're doing the shots and having success. And so I'm not doing this to over advertise or give anyone any false hope or promises. I'm doing it just to show that had I not been vulnerable, and shared, and strongly encouraged them to, ask their doctor to try a different method or to do the testing sooner
And
than
some doctors
later.
aren't going to do it.
They aren't.
There are some
Yep.
who will just say, nope, not doing it. So,
Yep.
I mean, one of our friends actually switched OBs
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah,
have that opportunity.
because if I went to see another doctor, or sometimes I thought I was in labor and then I wasn't, and they'd be like, what
I know all
medications?
moms.
Yeah, what medications are you on? And I'd be like, oh, Lovenox, whatever, and they're like, why? And I'd explain, and they're like, well, that doesn't make any
Right,
sense.
because it doesn't definitively prove
Yeah.
that X equals Y,
I was very appalled by how many other doctors that would see me would be like, why? Like, that's dumb. And I'd be like,
you're
well,
dumb.
because I miscarried 3 times.
Thanks for bringing that up, Jared.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
would just look at the medical report, you'd probably see that, but
Yeah, so.
did you read my chart?
Yeah. Hello, do you have the right patient?
Mm.
So yeah, the
yeah.
point in that is not to give anyone out there like any false hope. I do hope that, maybe it's something you could look into, but it was more so to illustrate the benefit of being vulnerable, and how it can help others. And then another update is that 2 Christmases ago, we remodeled our house, and there's an upstairs. And Christmas morning, Brianna ran upstairs to get Tori and yelled, Tori, it's Christmas morning. And she's like, huh? And she's like, let's open presents. And the 2 of them ran down the stairs.
Oh.
And so it was like, oh man, I had this vision
Look
before
at God
we
go.
even had stairs in our house. And then,
And Gabby can't run on the stairs because she's a baby.
oh, well, Gabby wasn't born yet. Actually, she might have just been itty bitty, but I can't do math.
I can't math it either. So 3 kids.
But yeah, since you bring that up, so
2
then
shots.
I did. I had, I went, what, I don't even know. Me and Jacob decided to go for a 3rd, and we did the shots again and had Gabby May, 3rd baby girl. And this shop is shut down. Lord willing.
Jesus, I know I said I'd have a 3rd, but I really don't feel led to have a 4th
I don't feel
out of
led.
this body.
Yes, yes. And so, talking to the girls, they've asked because, different, we're having nieces and nephews born on each side of the family. And so they've kind of asked, and I'm like, no. And they're like, well, how do you know? Because doesn't God, put the baby in your tummy? I'm like, I've really been praying to God.
Yes and no.
I have been praying to God, saying that I think, our family is set. I think we're good. And so I just pray that God agrees. And yeah, good conversations.
So, follow-up questions.
Yes.
What has been, or multiple, benefits for you? Like, it's benefited you for being vulnerable about this?
Well, I definitely think that there is evil that wants you to keep whatever you're struggling with to yourself.
Oh, I know why. So no one else can get help.
Yes, well, and it, in a weird way, talking to other people and knowing that you're not alone is helpful. But in my head, I had it clearly, I don't want to hear that anyone else has gone through it. I don't want them to try to relate because this is my pain, it's unique to me, which I still think that's true.
Yes.
But I was surprised that once I did find out how many other people had been through it, and that it wasn't done in a way of, oh yeah, me too. Or like, oh, well, how far were you? Because I was this far, Not that there aren't some people out there like that, but for the most part, people are coming from a place of, I lost that too. It is very painful. Not, I know it's very painful, but it's very painful. I'm going to be praying for you, and I love you, and it actually felt good to tell other people and hear that you weren't alone.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to kind of fight those, I'm going to use the word misconceptions, because I definitely think there's an evil out there that wants you to keep that to yourself.
Don't feel alone.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, sometimes I needed that time to grieve.
Everybody grieves differently.
Yes, and so, you'll know kind of when you're ready, or it'll be forced upon you.
There you go.
But, maybe you can see God in that and trying to help you heal by giving you either opportunities or putting people in your life that share that. So again, for me, that was people for some unknown reason to me, coming to me, telling me that they had lost a baby and miscarried, that then I shared. So that
Right.
whole, I'll let them be vulnerable first thing.
Reciprocity.
But once I had some experience with, how healing it was to know that, like you said, you're not alone, and that people are responding in love, and that they
Right.
genuinely care about you, and it's not,
Core motivation.
yeah, it's not, I know exactly how you feel, or mine was so much worse, or some weird competition. That just encouraged me to then initiate the vulnerability side.
So you need people who are going to truly empathize. And remember, empathy isn't necessarily experiencing the exact same thing. It could be just feeling your feelings with you. It could be putting yourself in their shoes, or thinking of something similar, not the same, even though it's apples and oranges, but...
Yeah, everyone's had painful experiences. And so I think everyone knows what it's like to be in some type of pain, emotionally, physically, all that.
Right. So how would you approach someone if they were going through this right now?
Mm-hmm.
Best advice. What would you give?
Gosh. I don't know how to answer that.
Quite a loaded question.
I think it just kind of depends on how you find out. So if they're coming to you, just listening, and asking if you can do anything to help take their mind off it, or if you want do you want to be mad together,
right.
and I don't know, go throw pumpkins at brick walls or something.
We can do that.
Scream into pillows, what have you. Do you want me to be researcher? Just asking what they need. But sometimes just being there with them. But I think it depends on how you're finding out too. So if you're finding out from someone else about that person, you probably don't need to approach it until they tell you themselves.
Right.
Now, if I have you're my best friend, and my principal happens to be the one to find out because it's the first day of school and she has your number, obviously that's a whole different situation.
Right.
The principal's trying to, have the right person reach out. But, if you don't know the person very well, just leaving a little note in their box saying, hey, I love you, praying for you, and maybe some chocolate.
Yeah, that always helps, right?
Yeah, just... they've talked about this a lot in church, about sitting Shiva. Am I saying that right?
That sounds right.
And was that a Jewish tradition?
You're quizzing me now. And
it's in the Bible. Go read it.
Yeah.
But it talks about just when someone was grieving, the practice was to just go sit with that person, not try to say anything or fix anything, just to
be
sit
present
with that person. Yeah. And so I think that's a great thing too. And it can be going to a restaurant or going to Starbucks. Something about getting out of the house, it really helps.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Any other tidbits you want to throw in there, whether it's advice or if someone's going through this right now, or what would you suggest? I'm asking you a lot of questions without giving them to you ahead of time.
No, it's okay. I think it was on my mind constantly. Constantly. There wasn't really a way to shut it off, and that could just be a me thing. So just knowing that if somebody has been through something like that, and they appear fine, it doesn't mean you need to ask them every single day, how you doing, how you doing, how you doing.
It still sucks.
Yeah.
Stop asking.
Yeah. Every day that you're not pregnant sucks. And then every day that you are pregnant, you're worried. Yes. And so just being mindful in that. And again, for me personally, I didn't want to hear false promises. And not false, but saying it's going to be okay. or whatever happens, you know, God's in control. Again, at that time, that would not have been anything that would have taken receptively.
Right. Those are truths, but not necessarily
they wouldn't have been
things you're
received.
experiencing right now.
Yeah.
Like, God is working all things together for our good, for His good, for the good of the kingdom. Everything will be okay, but that's not on this side of the life. And we're not, working all things together for our good, that doesn't mean you're going to experience certain aspects, but maybe since you spoke out about it, now someone else is getting shots, now they're able to have a baby. So that all of that is working together for good. And that is finding joy in those things, but we might not ever know. Like, someone could have told someone who could have told someone, but you're never going to see that effect of being vulnerable. You just have to trust and feel like, oh, I feel led to speak out about this. So
thank you for making that clear, that those are truths. I was not in a place that I could have received it. And the only thing I can hope for from this whole experience is that the next time I'm in a situation where I feel that way, I can look back on this and say, God had me the whole time. Not that, God wanted me to go through that pain and that suffering. Like you said, who knows? We don't know what His bigger plans are. But what I can do is take that experience and try to use it for good and what I can from it. So again, not that those things aren't true. I personally was not in a place where I could receive that.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure
glad
we
you
were
clarified
very
it.
clear.
Yeah, no. I'm glad you clarified it too. So yeah, all that to say, I think the biggest takeaways are that I didn't want to share or be vulnerable with that, because again, in my head, there was not going to be any good to come from it. But it turned out when I did start sharing more, it got better. So if there's something you're dealing with, it doesn't have to be infertility or, miscarrying and all that fun stuff, that sharing, again, with the right people and with the right intentions is what's going to deliver that healing and actually, can help you move forward. But just like, I encourage you that if you feel like you want to open up about things, that you go back and read Daring Greatly and listen to the different episodes, because there's definitely a right way and wrong way to be vulnerable.
And also, moving forward does not mean getting over it. Sometimes there is no getting over it, but there is upward trajectory to be had. You can leverage things, and we know He's working all things together for our good. So instead of staying stuck, you can move forward. You can hold grief and joy at the same time. That's what I'm learning more as I'm getting older and wiser, because I'm a really black and white thinker. Being a one, it's been really hard to figure that out. But you can hold grief and joy at the same time. You can be really sad this thing happened, but really joyful that you have 2 kids after your 3 miscarriages. So all these things can coexist, and that's what I'm learning as I'm getting older.
Yes, side note, I always tell my kids that they can miss me and still have fun, and I try to point that out to them constantly. So when I go to Gigi and Papa's or go to school or whatever, if I can't make it to a class party, I'm trying to teach them that early, that you can have 2 emotions. You can miss someone but still have fun. So they can still, that's hopefully setting them up for when they run into someone bullying them or picking on them, or maybe trying out for a team and not getting it, or not getting a job or a promotion, that you can have this disappointment and still do your job well. You can go through a tragedy but still show up for your family and try to have both those emotions. You can have someone be mean to you, but you can still have a group of friends and
you can still love them well too.
Yeah.
Ugh. Wow, it's hard to do, and that takes a lot of practice and just awareness of it too. Because again, I didn't realize this could happen until I hit my 30s. Like, oh wait, the world can work this way.
I find that a lot
Silly
about
me.
parenting is like, I learned something at
I
this
love
age.
you, but go to sleep.
Yeah, I found out at this age that
So I can stare at you because I miss you. At
at this age, I'm learning things that I wish I would have knew sooner. And so I think that's what all parents do. We try to teach our kids so they don't go through what like we went through.
Right.
But then we just sound like annoying parents.
Mom, I already know everything. Duh.
Yeah.
I know more than you and Dad. What a joyous time. You're so smart. I'm so glad you know everything already.
Yeah.
Must be a prodigy. Where's that full ride? Seeing how you know everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just predicting conversations in the future.
It sounds like, yep, one
Boy.
of my kids. I won't mention names.
Tune in 10 years when we've got teenagers
Oh, send help.
running rampant in our homes.
Oh my gosh.
Well, Faren, thank you so much for opening up and being vulnerable and leading from the front. That is a big deal. So congrats to you. This is good. I'm proud of you. Good job, bestie.
Well, thanks for talking me through it, bestie.
Oh, yay. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Preach.
Well.
Bye.
Yes. So next week. Next week we're going to have our interviews. So
Stay tuned
Or
for
more interviews.
vulnerable.
this was like the segue into the interviews.
More vulnerable conversations.
Yeah, look at you. All right. Well,
Now can I say it?
yeah.
Bye.
And also bye. Yay!